Hello and welcome to Kelly's Wordy Reactions. So today we're going to be looking at some video of Melody Farris and her statement after being convicted of the unaliving of her husband, Gary Farris. So just for a little bit of background in case you don't know, but Melody was the wife of a prominent Georgia attorney. She was convicted of his unaliving and also burning the body. Um, so on Monday, November 4th, a Cherokee County jury found, and this was, of course, 2024, a Cherokee County jury found Melody Farris guilty of um, unaliving her husband, Gary Farris, an Atlanta attorney in 2018. Okay, so they had this trial, and of course, she was found guilty. And the extremely interesting thing is that in her statement after, I guess before sentencing, she's allowed to give a statement, and she chose to go ahead and give a full testimonial of how she was innocent. She did not commit this crime, and she did know who did commit the crime, and that person was, in her account, her son Scott. She had, it was a very spirited write up and testimonial from Melody. I did not watch the trial. I did start paying attention to it once Phone Calls from Prison YouTube channel put up some phone calls between Melody and her, what is believed to be a man that she was having a long-standing affair with. So Phone Calls from Prison recently started to put some of those phone calls up. So that is what brought Melody to my attention in this whole case. So either she's very convincing, or I don't know, just a complete sociopath. I don't know, because I have not looked at the trial. I didn't see the trial, nor have I seen all of the evidence and the testimony from different witnesses. So I can't say, but I can say that what she wrote, as well as how she looked around the courtroom, as well as how she turned around and stared her son down, or what I believe to be, she was staring him down, because you couldn't see him, you could only see her, but you could see her, get up and, turn around in her seat. She looked very sad, as far as just like emotionally broken down. She looked hurt. She was emoting like disgust. She was running him down from kindergarten. She tried to, anyway. They started to stop her, but she tried to bring up everything from this man taking her credit card, to stealing rings, to how he always had an anger problem since kindergarten. I mean, she went down through there. She really did. So anyway, we're gonna look at it real quick, and y'all tell me what y'all think. Okay, let's go over here to the video. And I am presenting this video from Court TV. Court TV is a court channel on YouTube. Share the screen. very, very informative court channel. They do a very good job of keeping up with a lot of different cases. So I'm gonna hop over to Court TV. If you want to see this video in its full in its entirety without me um, stopping and giving commentary and reactions and stuff like that, please go to Court TV. As well, just please go to Court TV and subscribe over there. You will not be disappointed. They keep up with, like I said, many, many cases, and they have lots of different types of commentary. We're also going to look at commentary over there from a body language expert. So I thought that was very interesting too. So I wanted to call you all's attention to both of these situations if I can. And so let's go ahead and share this video and make sure it's playing for us.
All right, Ms. Farris, if you have a statement.
I do.
All right.
I've written this so that I can get through the words.
Okay.
On July the 5th, 2018, 6 years, 5 months ago today, began the worst nightmare that I could have ever imagined. Not only my world, but my family's world was absolutely destroyed at the hands of one person. I've had 6+ years of being told not to talk. Don't say that. Take legal advice. I could walk out of this courtroom today and drop over dead. I want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and Gary's family, and to be honest, at this point in time, the entire world who has viewed this, I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone. I want the world to know who did this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth. And has that ever been proven to be the truth in this case? Not only did I not do this, I know who did. I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband, the father of Chris, Emily, and Amanda. He took Big Dad.
Now this is not Scott. Which son is this? Hold on just a second. Because I did look at, I think this is Chris. Okay, so I did look at Chris's testimony, if his name is Chris, and I believe it is. And also I saw Chris talk about how he came to be over there at the house the same morning that they were looking for his dad. He had been missing since the night before. So he ended up coming over there. I believe it was to pick up his daughter that morning because the daughter had been with her grandmother and she had wanted to, run in and find Big Daddy. I think they all called him Big Daddy, I think. So she had been wanting to run in and find Big Daddy and let him know she was there and, kind of kick it with her grandpa a little bit. And he never did come in. And so by the morning, he was officially missing because none of that was like him, not to come home and not to let anybody know where he was. He wasn't answering his phone. So Chris had dropped his daughter off there the day before. She wanted to go over with her grandmother. He wanted her to stay with him out at the pool. They were barbecuing and all this other stuff. But she wanted to go over with her grandmother. So he took her over there. I remember him saying he was a little bit annoyed because he was in the middle of kind of having his own little, party. They were at the pool. He was having a good time. He assumed she was, but then she wanted to go to her grandma. She didn't even wait for the food to get ready. He had to take her and pick her up something to eat on the way. And so then he was just kind of anxious to get her dropped off, get back to the pool, get back to his friends and all of that. And so he's coming to get her the next day. And I believe on the way, his siblings are letting him know, hey, dad is missing. So he lands over there in the middle of this frantic search for the father. And in the middle of them all starting to look, he sees his mom and Scott go over to the burn pile. So then he starts heading over to the burn pile. I think he's got his 2 daughters with him by now. And then by the time he gets close, his brother Scott tells him, get the girls out of here, because Scott has already discovered some human remains. So, so this, as I was saying before, this is Chris, and they're going to show Scott, or you may have already, I think we already did see Scott, but I didn't interrupt at that point. Scott is more, he has more gray hair. They're very similar in appearance, but Scott seems to be like a little bit bigger of a man, and I think he had more gray hair. Okay. Let's go back to the video.
Daddy, for my grandchildren, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jax, and James, 3 of them who never got to know Gary. Scott, this is unforgivable. Scott has spent an entire life of loving and protecting you, but this I refuse to cover for you. My mother, your mom.
There she go, turning around. I'm going to rewind that a little bit. So she said, Scott, I spent an entire lifetime of loving and protecting you, but I'm going to let it be known at this point. And the reason why I could see it both ways. I could see her being a complete, sociopath. She was like in this long standing relationship with her boyfriend. It was like they had a whole separate marriage, sort of, from the types of conversations that I heard when I listened to them talk over on Phone Calls from Prison. Also, if you don't listen to Phone Calls from Prison, head over there, subscribe to them, because they give a lot of conversations and video visits between from inmates and their loved ones. So when I was listening to them on Phone Calls from Prison, it's like they are a whole other married couple. And then she's got her whole other, her family with her children, her grandchildren. So, it could really go either way. But what I was going to say was, as a mother, the instinct to not want your children to get in trouble or get into a certain amount of trouble, or I guess, just protect them from trouble. The instinct is very, very strong. So even though in your head that they have to face their consequences, but at the same time, you trying to do everything you can. I'm going to say you trying to do everything that you can to um, make sure that they don't get into trouble. I don't know about covering up for them, and just always try to, instill that this is why you don't want to get into any trouble, because you have consequences, or there will be consequences to face if you do. But I can just see how, like I said, the motherly instinct is so strong to just do everything that you can in your power to get your children to go in the right direction, to do the right things. And then, when they do something that is totally outside of everything that you wanted for them and everything that you taught them, it is, I don't know, I can see how you would be tempted to want to just, cover them. I can see how you would be tempted to do that. This is horrific. This is something that no mother wants to even try to think about imagining. So I could just see how um, it might take some time for you to just blurt it out, like, I am not protecting you. Like, it's me or you. I'm sure if this is true, it's very hurtful. It's very painful to think that your child wouldn't jump in and own up to what they did, so that you wouldn't uh, get the punishment for what they did. But then again, um, as far as the child and mother relationship, and if this child is bent, and just warped in his thinking, then he may very well be thinking, well, you know, um, if you're gonna take the blame, I'm gonna let you take it. And it's me against you. You just don't know. I feel like there's not enough known. And with her, pouring out these things she's about to pour out, you start to get a sense, if this is true, you start to get a sense that she has been covering for him all of his life, helping, trying to keep him from himself. You get a little bit of sense of that. Like I said, we don't know if any of this is true. Um, I'm just trying to see where she's coming from as far as stating all this stuff after the fact, after, like, right when she's about to be sentenced. She did not do this in the middle of the trial. She didn't speak up for herself. And so she's pouring all this out, you know, a day late, a dollar short. And I'm just trying to see where she's coming from. Um, but yeah, other than that, she'd have to just be I don't know, just a complete crazy person. The only problem with her being a complete, just sociopathic crazy person is that it's like it makes a lot of sense. Even the fact that Scott lives there, and he just helps with the farm, and he doesn't seem to have much of like his own thing going on. And I even thought that, as earlier on when I was first learning about this case, I thought like, okay, so Scott just kind of lives there. He helps out with this farm. This is not like people that have been raised on a farm and they've always had a farm and all this. No, she just decided at some point late in life that she wanted a farm. She wanted to live on a farm, but a farm needs all this upkeep and everything. The brother right here, Chris, he didn't like the farm. They didn't want any parts of it, pretty much, because this is not the way that they were raised. This is just something that she decided like later on. So it would make more sense if Scott was just like a farm boy, this was his lifestyle. But being that this is none of these people's lifestyle for real, And this is all just something that they picked up on and started doing later on. And now, Scott lives at the farm upstairs in a bungalow loft or something like that. And he just takes care of these animals and stuff all the time. It was just kind of given like, why is Scott just living like this, at his kind of big age and everything. So anyway, let's continue on. Let me shut up and let's continue on.
Scott has spent an entire life of loving and protecting you, but this I refuse to cover for you. My mother, your mom,
And Chris is like, cut it.
begged me
You
to
got
take the
cut
blame for
it.
this. She said after she talked to you, after Gary died, that she knew you had done it. Her exact words were, "You are his mother. You have to take blame for this."
So her mom, at some point in understanding everything that's happened and how all this whole thing has shaken out, her mother said, "You're his mother. I know he did it, but you're his mother, and you have to take this. You got to take the blame for this." So, reading between the lines here, this sounds like a very sounds like there's some very toxic relationships here. It sounds like from her mother, if her mother is telling her this, let me try to think. I cannot even imagine my mother telling me this. I can't imagine my grandmother telling me this. Everybody would just kind of shake their head and they would say, "That's terrible, that's awful." But I don't see anybody telling me or anybody in my family like, "Well, I mean, you're his mother. You got to take the blame for this." I'm I don't see it. I just do not see it. So what this is kind of telling me is, as toxic as any family might be, I feel like this is like some toxic stuff that she has in her upbringing that's kind of been passed down. Some And like I'm kind of being reminded of, because so many people in my family have like passed on, but I'm kind of being reminded of some situations and just some kind of like general, family toxicity where people just kind of don't want to hear about some people doing some things, and they would rather some other people just bear the brunt of it than some other people having to face the consequences of it. So for this part, I, I don't necessarily think that she's lying, because not only for my family, but this is kind of like a running theme a lot of times in families. Like they really don't want to see bad things happen. And when bad things do happen, a lot of times, um, the whole family dynamic wants to just kind of see it go away or hushed somehow, rather than the people who are really to blame having to get the punishment for it. And then especially in the older generations, they kind of tend to um not want people to be held accountable, especially like, I don't know, when it comes to like the children and the grandchildren, they would kind of rather put the fault back on somebody else, like the mother, the way she raised the kid, or like the father that, maybe was absent or something like that. Like a lot of times within a family dynamic, um, people want things to remain hushed. They don't want it to come out. They don't want the rightful, people who have ownership of the thing to actually get the punishment. So for that, I can see where she's coming from. I can, we don't know whether her mother said this or not, but if she did, I can see where that's coming from. And I don't necessarily think that she's lying, because this is kind of, if you think about it, you could probably understand it is kind of like a running theme within families to kind of like want things to remain hushed, not to come out. Obviously, this had to come out. And if it did, then, you know, maybe everybody would rather see her just take the blame for it, because of on some other stuff, on some, well, we don't like all this other stuff that you've been doing. So you can just, be punished for all the other things that we don't like that you ever did. Um, Even though you didn't do this, or we don't really know if you did it and we don't really care, because, you can just take the blame, So I don't know, but I can just kind of see where this would be coming from within a family dynamic, especially like a really, this is toxic. Hands down, it's toxic, but it happens.
And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still have 3 other children, grandchildren, and this is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which you have done. I saw
Catch that T. She said, all of which you have done. This is not a stolen ring, a credit card, or a forged check. What'd she say? Miss Melody is reading Scott for filth. Oh my gosh. Here we go. I'm just like Miss Melody. You coming in hot, but you coming in late. What are you doing?
mother, you have to take blame for this. And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still have 3 other children, grandchildren, and this is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which.
She says Scott done stole checks, he done stole credit cards, and he done stole a diamond ring and pawned it that she knows of. This is a whole person's life. And she said, I cannot stand for it. But like I said, I wish she would have decided that she wasn't going to stand for it during the trial.
You have done. I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th in your truck. You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire. You told me it was okay. I asked you a few weeks later why you were at that burn pile in your truck. And you told me that your dad had told you to clean up the extra wood that was by the barn. I told Hayes that I had seen Scott that morning coming from the burn pile. So, Hayes, where is that recording? I want to know. You told me there was multiple recorders. You did, but you sat here in this courtroom and you told this court that you didn't tell anybody about recorders, but you did.
Now, I don't know who she's talking about, but the person that looks like she's talking to them is this lady right here. This lady right here who is looking, what I like to call shocked and appalled. And he's looking downward, not really at her, but he's looking, like in that general direction. Now, I don't know who this is. He's looking down like, oh my, these ladies here are looking like, baby, please, we don't care what you're saying. This is an absolute train wreck. Like, you need to be for real. But if I had to guess, and I will, I'm gonna guess that she's talking to this lady and she's turning around, speaking directly to somebody. So yeah, if these people could answer back, this would be a full-on argument, probably would come to blows because it's like nobody can believe that she's saying what she's saying, but she's saying what she's saying with her whole chest, her whole entire chest. So let's keep going.
Where is that recording in the interview? You, Scott, immediately started saying that there was a gun missing, a gun that nobody knew about. You never mentioned before. I asked you more days than not where your dad was, and this was the first time you ever had that response.
Now I don't know. Once again, if she's fabricating this, man, she needs to be she needs to write books because I can feel that, like when you live with people, I don't think they all live in the same house, but they certainly all live on the same property. And so when you live with people, you just have a tendency to ask, where's this, where's that, where's this have you seen this person, have you seen your dad, is he in the garage, I looked in the garage, hey, is your dad upstairs up there with you, is he in the game room, is he in the man cave, like you just have a tendency to do that. If somebody else is in the house with you, you don't necessarily run all around yourself, you just ask the other people that are in the house. So I could feel her, what she's saying. Like, I ask you all the time, where is your dad? And for you to come back with, you know what, there's a gun missing. That's weird. Like, that's on some weird stuff right there. If she's telling the truth, if this has anything to do with what really happened. But like I said, if not, she's an excellent storyteller. Okay. Here we go.
There's a gun missing. You should have you did start immediately spinning your story when you found out that Addison and Cameron were there the night before. You got so angry. Now I know why. When I went to feed the baby goat the morning
Hold on.
that
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. It's all about facts of the case. You emphatically stated your statement needs to not be about facts of the case.
Well, Ms. Farris, really not supposed to go into the evidence of this phase of the case. And what I typically do is if the defendant wants to go into the facts of the case, I'm going to allow the state to cross-examine or ask questions, which I don't really anticipate you want to do.
I would just ask to
But
close, Judge.
your statements need.
And she's already found guilty and about to be sentenced. So I'm thinking that my first mind says, why not? Why not? She's already she's already found guilty. But I think what Judge Cannon here is referring to is probably her chances on appeal. So he probably doesn't, or I'm sure he knows that it's unwise of her, as far as her chances in appeal, to like run back down through this situation and be cross-examined and all of that, because of course all that is going to come back if she does take this to appeal, which I'm assuming that she will. So if she takes this and appeals it, then you don't want for all this testimony after the fact to be coming back up, and then now they're going to ask you, go back to your statements, go back to where you may have said one thing then, and now you're saying this now. So that's just my best guess as to why he would be telling her, I don't think you want to do that. So he's trying to veer her off of this this testimonial that she's laying out. And from what I remember, she's getting ready to go right back to, now when I went to feed the baby goats, he said it, but she did not get the memo. But let's go ahead and listen to it.
Needs to be constrained to the punishment, and if there's things you want to talk about in relation to that and how I should sentence you, I don't have a problem if you want to continue to profess your innocence, but we're not going to go on for a significant period of time. You resuscitate your view of the case and your opinion as to what the evidence is without your prior testimony and without the state being able to cross-examine it. It's not proper. So I'm going to ask you to restrain your remarks to comply with those directions.
Judge, this needs to be known.
Well,
I'll just ask to respond, Judge.
Melody said, forget what you're talking about. I got the mic. I got the mic. They done told me to shut up for so long, and now I'm guilty. I'm convicted, and I got this mic now, and I'm not going to shut it down.
All right. All right, go ahead.
I went to feed the baby goat the morning of July the 5th before I left for the lake. I saw where you had washed out the barn. I later found that several bottles of house wash were missing after this all happened several weeks ago.
Ooh, she said Scott washed the barn out. And she said that she found that several bottles of house wash. I don't know what that is. I don't know if she means like cleansing fluids that you would just have in the house for cleaning up, or if they literally had some type of high-powered wash that you would put inside of what do you call it? Pressure washer. And so that you're a lot of people that have like siding actually pressure wash the siding to keep it clean looking. So I don't know if she's talking about that or just regular, cleaner, Lysol and Pine Sol and all that type of stuff. But she said that she noticed a lot of it was gone, and that he actually had washed inside of she's saying the barn. But okay, let's see what else she's got to say.
Now I know why.
She said, now I know why.
The bathroom spotlessly clean. Now I know why. I know why you demanded me to move the tractor that you so were upset about it being in the place. Now I know why. Scott, you called me on July the 4th and asked me what my plans were for the day.
And see, she's looking back. She's looking back. She's looking at Scott. She's she's telling people off to their face, and trying to read her statement and get as much of it out as she can. So I don't know. To me, she seems believable. To me, she seems believable. And I just think that it's awful that if this is true, and if she's not just a total sociopath that's willing to blame her child to try to get herself off, then she should have done more with her defense attorney to be able to say this before the verdict. I don't know, a lot of times you can, go with the flow too much. You can go with what somebody else is telling you ought to do, way, 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 way too much until you've gone with the flow too far and it's kind of no coming back. You've been advised wrong and it's no coming back from it. So anyway, let's continue.
And I told you I was going to the lake with Amanda, and you were so glad that I was going. I thought it odd then. Now I know why. I found copies of my birth certificate, your dad's birth certificate, our marriage license in your truck. Now I know why. Scott, I saw Gary going to that barn the night of July the 3rd, right after you got home. And then Scott is going, and I thought then Scott's going to be in trouble for staying at the lake and playing golf all the time. Never in a million years did I ever think that this nightmare was starting then.
Wow. So she sees her husband. She sees her husband out there, and then she sees Scott come in from wherever he had been. And she's saying, I'm thinking to myself, man, Scott is going to really be in trouble because he has not been at this farm taking care of his business. They're paying Scott, by the way. He's receiving a salary for all of his responsibilities around there. So what she's saying is, man, Gary is going to light into him because he's been out playing golf, doing whatever, and he hasn't been here taking care of this farm like what he's supposed to be doing. So, man, he's really getting ready to be in trouble. I'm going to roll this back just a little bit. I know I'm taking some time with this, but I really wanted to break it down and see where she was coming from. So go back to about right there. Okay, here we go.
Of my birth certificate, your dad's birth certificate, our marriage license in your truck.
Now, this is an interesting piece too. I don't want to dwell here too long, but she's saying that at some point she went in his truck and she found her and her husband's birth certificates and their marriage licenses in his truck. I don't know what that could all be about. She's saying she knows why. I don't know why. I don't understand why he would have their documents like that. I don't know if he's, if they did some more investigating, would they find that he was purchasing something in their names? Was he taking out some lines of credit in their names and using these documents to prove up? Was he getting some sort of illegal power of attorney in their names? Like what would he have been doing with those vital documents like that? I don't know. She's saying she knows why. She didn't work that point out, but she's, this is she's laying out a lot of details here. That one thing that we can say, she's detailed it out.
Now I know why. Scott, I saw Gary going to that barn the night of July the 3rd, right after you got home. And then Scott is going, and I thought then Scott's going to be in trouble for staying at the lake and playing golf all the time.
Okay, so she says, I saw Gary go into the barn. It's almost as if she's saying she knew that when Gary went into that barn, he was going to see a whole bunch of stuff that Scott hadn't done. And then so Scott came home and she's like, oh man, he's about to be in trouble with his dad. Okay.
Never in a million years did I ever think that this nightmare was starting then. I told you, Detective Hayes, that I saw Scott going over there to the barn. Where is that in the recording? A bag. I know exactly where and when I was standing. Scott, you put antifreeze under my kitchen sink to set me up for this. That only you would have known where it was.
Okay, hold on. Now, did she say a bag? I'm kind of not getting like some of the words that she's saying because of she's not getting the words out clearly for me anyway. I don't know if y'all are understanding what she's saying, but I'm going to try to figure out what these sounds like. She said she saw a bag, but let's see what she said again. You know what? Slow it down one notch. Okay.
Scott, I saw Gary going to that barn the night of July the 3rd, right after you got home. And then Scott is going, and I thought then Scott's going to be in trouble for staying at the lake and playing golf all the time. Never in a million years did I ever think that this nightmare was starting then. I told you, Detective Hayes, that I saw Scott going over there to the barn. Where is that in the recording?
Detective Hayes. She said, I told you, Detective Hayes, that I saw Scott going over there to the barn. Where is that in the recordings? Okay. So Detective Hayes said, that's not important. we got one suspect trying to blame somebody else. That's not important. Okay. That's my rendition of what Detective Hayes thought. Okay. Let's see what else she's saying.
A bag. I know exactly.
Okay, going over there with a bag. She told Detective Hayes this. Detective Hayes threw it out.
Where and when I was standing. Scott, you put antifreeze under my kitchen sink to set me up for this. That only you would have known where it was because it was for the Mercedes.
She said Scott set her up by putting antifreeze under the kitchen sink. So okay. I'm beginning to remember something. Okay, so in listening to Chris's, the other son, so Scott is the more gray-haired one. Him and Chris, to me, they look just alike. It's just like Scott is a little bit thicker and he's got the gray hair, and Chris, is smaller and looks younger with less gray. Okay, so when I listened to Chris's testimony, Chris testified that his dad used to have these sick spells. I almost completely forgot about that. So he also testified that one day his dad told him that he said, I think your mom is poisoning me. I think I think your mom is trying to take me out of here. I think she's poisoning me. And Chris was like, why would you say that, Dad? And he said, well, because I made some, we had been arguing pretty much all day. And then she just popped up and made me some cookies and brought them to me. And I went ahead and ate the cookies. I didn't think anything of it. But then after I ate the cookies, I started feeling bad. So, I don't know. I wonder. So then Chris was like, Dad, you don't think that for real. And then Dad, I'm sure his fatherly, if this is a real thing, his fatherly instinct kicks in, and he's like, well, this is my son, that's his mother. I'm not going to tell him his mother is doing this. Like, I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to hammer in on it. So he says, well, yeah, I don't know, I'm just joking, or something like that. And he, Chris went on, but at the same time, he remembered it. And at the same time, he remembers these sick spells that his dad would have, and they never kind of knew where it was coming from. He had been to the doctor, didn't really have any reason to be having these things that he called sick spells, where he just get to feeling bad. He would have to sit down or lay down. A lady at his office said that he would a lot of times take naps, and sometimes very extended naps in his office. So, on the one hand, you have his son saying that it may have coincided when his mother made him something to eat. Then on the other end, you have this secretary at his job saying that sometimes he would feel bad at work. Sometimes he would take these extended naps. So maybe it didn't necessarily coincide with anything that his wife did or fed him or anything like that. But I believe that this is where this is coming from, this whole antifreeze thing. She's saying you planted the antifreeze under the kitchen sink. You would be the only one that would have known to do something like that. And to make her look as if she had potentially been trying to get rid of him for a long time, and it wasn't working. So then eventually she just resorted to what eventually happened. All right. With all that being said, let's go back to the video.
When Amanda and I were putting that house back together, you sat in there and watched us like a hawk. Now I know why. You became so angry when the fire investigator came in July, weeks after this nightmare started. Now I know why you were so angry. Scott, you failed your polygraph test. You recorded meetings at the attorney's office and turned them over to the DA's office. We hired Manny to help us. Emily is the
You know what? I wonder how the jury feels. I think after this, I'm going to see if I can find anybody who interviewed any of the jury, because I really do wonder what is going through the minds of the jurors as this statement is going forth. Like, they've already put their verdict in. Right now, sentencing is in the hands of the judge. But I'm like, oh my gosh, if I was a juror or even just in the courtroom, like, that would be kind of priceless to see and to hear about what they think as she's saying all this, because they do know all the pieces. They know everything that's been presented. So I wonder, I really wonder what is going through their minds.
one who used her daddy's credit card to pay for that attorney. Scott, you got so angry that your sister Amanda was getting my personal clothes and my personal things, to the point that Cherokee County had to be called. That is not the actions of the same person. Scott's anger issues have all been a huge issue. When he was in kindergarten and elementary school, Chris would.
I'm objecting. At this point, she's dragging Scott through the mud and his character.
She said at this point, I guess this is the one of the prosecuting attorneys. She said at this point she is dragging Scott through the mud and his character. So I think she goes on a little bit more. with another warning from the judge. Let's see.
This is not.
All right, Ms. Farris.
But yeah, she's getting ready to try to go all the way back to kindergarten on Scott, just going down through there on Scott. Like she has completely, either, like I said, she's a complete sociopath and she doesn't mind trying to figure out how anybody else can take this rap or how she can take anybody else down with her, or there's some truth to this, and she's woke up and decided, like, I'm not going to be, my character isn't going to be the only thing that's in question here. Like, I'm getting ready to let her rip. So here we go.
Farris, I'm going to cut you off if you keep just wanting to resuscitate facts that aren't before the court. And Ms. Frankish, I'll give you a chance to respond to the extent that you want to and give you closing statement.
I am the mother that was always there for my children, even though they had done things that were wrong. Chris, who took care of your girls and loved them if they were my own, who came and got them off the street when you were acting an absolute fool.
And there goes Chris catching a stray. She said Chris, you was acting a complete fool. Who came and got him and patched them back up? That was me. That would have been me.
Because they were scared to death. Who drove down to Buckhead and got your children?
Now I will tell you. Okay, so just to kind of give you some direction. Things that are appropriate, you helping take care of your family, raise your family, those kind of things, what you've done throughout your life, and asking the court to exert some sort of mercy on you, things of that nature are appropriate. So you can talk about those kind of things, but let's don't go into the individual facts or things that haven't been previously presented to the court. Okay? All right, go ahead.
I love Ella and Addison more than life itself. And it was their life or mine. It would be mine in a heartbeat. Emily, who helped you move to and from an apartment and a house in 19-degree weather, even though I knew that you were trying to keep it from me. I was always there for you. I came back to you in Thompson Station after your husband was arrested to care for you and Olivia. I am so sorry that your children will never know their big daddy. Amanda and Chad, words cannot express my gratitude for everything that you've done for me. Thank you so very much. And I was fortunate enough to get to care for James every day since he was 3 weeks old. He is my pride and joy. Love for that little boy is unbelievable. I spent 18 plus months in the Cherokee County Jail over something that I did not do. The last thing, I thought that was the last thing I could do to Gary, for him, to get justice for him. I can remember thinking, it's okay that I sit here. I just want answers. That's all I want. And I still haven't gotten them. And I don't think that I ever will. And that scares me to death. Amanda was the only one of my children that got up here and told the truth. And I thank her for that every day. Judge Cannon, I had so many questions, so many whys. Why were so many things not their task? Why was the barn never checked? I think that would have given us so many answers. Why did they run out of Blue Star? They were on my property for days. I begged of you to get answers.
She said, "Why was the barn never checked? Why did they? I'm not clear on what this blue star is. That might just be something that's specific to where she lives. But I'm gonna slow it down again so I can try to catch that what she's saying. Okay, here we go.
Judge Cannon, I have so many questions, so many whys. Why were so many things not their task? Why was the barn never checked?
Why were so many things not their task? I think that's what she said. And then why was the barn never checked?
I think that would have given us so many answers. Why did they run out of Blue Star?
Why did they run out of Blue Star or ride out of Blue Star? That sounds like something that's just specific to the area where they live, or asking the judge, like, why about the investigation. I'm guessing here, but that's, along the lines of what she's talking about, posing these questions to the judge.
They were on my property for days. I begged of you to get answers. Judge Cannon, I am begging for justice for Gary, for my children, for my grandchildren.
Judge Cannon is like, "Oh yeah, we're getting ready to get justice for Gary, all right. In just a minute, as soon as you finish." Okay, here we go. I changed the speed back.
For Gary's family. And I am begging that you throw out this verdict. Be the 13th juror. Help us get justice. I did not do this. I promise you on my life, the 18 months that I did in Cherokee County was nothing compared to the last month that I spent in there. Now I know that Cherokee County did not do the job in the investigation. They took Scott's story and ran with it. I know that in my heart, body, and soul, who did this. And I'm begging for help. I'm begging you, Judge Cannon. Please do not send me to prison for something I didn't do. I did not do this. If I had done this, I would take this charge gladly. If it would bring.
Now she's looking Judge Cannon square in the eye now. Now she's got her notes and she's squaring off with Judge Cannon. And I guess Judge Cannon is saying, "Baby, look, you should have done this a long time ago. Right now, I'm not tracking with you." Okay, let's go.
Bring Gary back, I would gladly go to prison. I do not want to wait years for an appeal. I've waited 6 years and 5 months for justice already, but here we are. Maybe I should have testified, but I listened to legal counsel.
You absolutely should have testified, because, if nothing else, even if she's, wrong in a mug, running her son down, and she knows that she did this crime, at least she would have created some doubt in the minds of the jurors when it was time. So, she would have been subject to cross-examine and everything else, but at least, she could have had her say. And, why she wouldn't do that, if she was, taking the advice of her counsel or whatever, it doesn't really matter, because now it just looks like, well, you wanted to say what you had to say at the very end when you're not going to be subject to cross-examination. So, it doesn't look good for her, because when it was time to do it, you didn't want to do it. Now you want to do it when the judge did say that they could cross-examine, but I mean, at this point, it's after the fact. It's, the chances are so slim that anything would be done. I don't even know if it can be done. Maybe that's what she's talking about the 13th juror. I don't know. But like, why you wouldn't do this when you had the opportunity, when you could have pushed back with your own attorney and told them, I'm getting up there. I don't care what you say. Like, they can't stop you. You could stand up and tell the judge you want to get up there. They cannot stop you from getting up there. But it was like I don't know. Either she didn't want to do it because she knew that she wouldn't hold up under cross-examination, or she just kept going along to get along, and then it messed her up. I don't know. So anyway, let's let her continue on a few more minutes.
I wanted the truth out there, and this is why I am making this statement. I will talk to any and everyone who can help me and my family. I never wanted my family's life to be played out for the world to see. It is a mother's job to protect her children, and I cannot protect the person who did this. We can't replace Gary. That is unforgivable. I promise you to work hand in hand with the DA's office. But what scares me the most is that because of several individuals, so many others in this county that did not do their job.
This doesn't go over real good either with the criminal justice system, like the police, the investigators, the court officials, the judge. All of them are part of the criminal justice system. And so when you say that a part of the criminal justice system didn't do their job, I don't know. I haven't worked. I don't know this for sure, but I'm imagining. I haven't worked in that industry, but it's just like, again, that kind of protective instinct. It doesn't go over well when you are sitting there accused of this heinous crime and telling the criminal justice system that the criminal justice system didn't do their job. I don't see how that. I feel like that kind of lands like a bomb. It's not a good thing to say, because all of them are a part of it, and you're sitting there accused and convicted, and it just, I think she could have left that out or said it differently. She talks about what was my point? My other point I had here. She talks about Gary and how it's unforgivable that he's not here anymore. And that also, the feeling of it doesn't feel like something that you would say when you're the one that did it. Because if it's unforgivable and we're accusing you of doing it, then, what's the highest penalty? Because it is unforgivable. And I kind of feel like that's probably what the judge was thinking here in this sentencing. Like, you know what? It is unforgivable. But when you really think about if the accused would say this, it seems like something that the accused person that is accused and convicted wouldn't say, that it's unforgivable. I feel like she just, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it at that. I feel like if you do this crime, you're going to say things that are more forgiving about the crime. But when she says it's unforgivable, it really, really kind of does, hit it home for me that maybe she didn't actually do it because of the type of verbiage that she's using. But okay, here we go.
Justice will never be done. For the last 6 years and 5 months, my every thought has been consumed with this. No matter what I do, it never leaves. And until you have lived this, nobody can understand. And I would not wish this on anybody. When I heard of the mother of the boy at that Appalachia school shooting, she called to tell that her own son was going to the school with a gun. My heart broke for her. This is a mother's worst nightmare. Judge Cannon, I beg of you for help. As one parent to another, help me get justice for Gary and my family.
And there it is again. Help me get justice for Gary and my family. And you are accused, you're convicted, you've been proven by the court of law to be guilty, and either she is just very detached from how this works, she didn't do it, or she's a psychopath. I don't know. I don't know. But that to use these words when you are the one that's about to be sentenced, yeah, I don't know.
A mother, or at least not this mother, does not blame her child unless she knows he did it. Not thinks, knows. And I would never sit here and let the attorneys lay blame to him if I didn't know. You have no idea how heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching this is. John Luke says that I'm the most stoic person he's ever met. My response was, you never know how strong you are until that's your only choice. So before it's said that the only reason I'm telling you this is because I got a guilty verdict, it's not. If it had come back as not guilty, I would have still been begging for justice, for help getting the right person convicted. As soon as I walked out of the courtroom, I promise you I would have done that. Chris, Emily, Amanda, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jack, and James, I am doing this for you. Gary is gone, and trust me, when I say that he is in a better place, because this has been the worst nightmare. It's been hell on earth. Knowing that your own son did this. And it's only been by the grace of God that I have survived this last 6 years and 5 months. If I could, I would gladly trade places with Gary. Judge Cannon, I am begging you for help. Please do this for Gary and my family. I have missed years with the people that I love dearly. Help me restore my family. Be the person in Cherokee County that it is their task. I do not want years. I do not want to wait years for justice, years that I may not have. I know this is something that you may never have seen before. And I plead with you to roll this verdict out. Help me get justice for the correct person. As bad as it sounds, I want to be there to watch him chained and shackled and brought to justice. I plead with you. This is something that I will never recover from. I don't know that my family will ever recover from. Please help me. I'm begging you to restore my faith in the judicial system.
You know what? No matter what, they all have to want to express something emotionally. Like, this is their mother, for goodness sake. You know, this is their mother. And, you know, she was doing for them while this was happening. You know, she was, you know, being the grandmother that, you know, Chris right here, he was saying that she overdid her grandmother role. She, you know, wanted to have his daughters with her. Apparently he's not together with his wife, that, or the woman that he had the children with. So he would get his children and they would, you know, want to go with her, or they would go with her, and then she wouldn't even want to give them back. You know, she had them all the time. You know, obviously they love their grandmother. They wouldn't be requesting that they get to go over there with her when it was time to, you know, their time to come and visit dad. You know, doing for them, taking them places, buying them things, you know, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, she obviously didn't have a great relationship with her husband, but they were together. Chris talked about the fact that, you know, she had done some things with some money that his father didn't agree with. And, you know, so he was kind of, feel like he was kind of more so on his father's side than on his mother's side when it came to choosing a parent. And, you know, I guess the contentious points in their relationship had kind of caused all the children to pick a side, even though their parents were still together. So I don't know, just the fact that she's sitting there crying, pleading for her freedom, and you know, she's laying all this out. I'm feeling like, you know, within a family, everybody knows who everybody is. You know, everybody knows the people that handle the business, you know, that are the steady people that take care of everything, take care of everybody. Everybody knows the people that are solid. Everybody knows the people that are just a screw up. You know, every time you look around, everybody knows who everybody is. Now, you may not expect a person to do a certain thing, but within families, you know, we all have these people, and sometimes they go further to the left than you would expect them to, and sometimes they go right. And, you know, and you're like, wow, that was a real, you know, stand-up thing that they did, or that was like huge how they turned their life around or whatever. But, you know, like, it's more kind of often than not that people just kind of continue to be the way that they are all the way to for the good or the bad. So just with them having to be there and listen to this, I guess what I'm saying is I'm sure that everybody who knows, everybody in this family and everybody who knows the family close and intimate, they're all probably having these images in their mind of who everybody is, who Gary was, who Melody is, who everybody knows her to be at her core, whatever that is, you know, who everybody knows her to be, who everybody knows Scott to be, Chris knows, how his brother is, how his sisters are, like at the core, everybody knows. And I'm just like, wow, what type of alarm bells are going off? Either for Scott, for the good or for the bad, or for the mother, for the good or the bad. Like, what type of things are just like resounding in their heads that they know in the pit of their stomach what this is? I know my mother is a sociopath, but if you know your mother is a sociopath, why do you let her have your kids all the time? Why do your kids love her so much and they're with her all the time? She's always going here and going there and picking them up and not wanting to drop them off, and they want to keep going back with grandma. If you know your mom is this lunatic, where was the restraint when it came to allowing her to deal with you and your children? Chris said that he would get mad at her, a lot, but it was mostly behind how much she wanted to have his kids, or it was mostly behind something that maybe his dad expressed to him, about him and his wife and their relationship, that maybe Chris shouldn't have even known. So, no, whatever. Incidentally, Gary, as upstanding and everything as he's being made to look. I mean, he's obviously the victim. He's not here anymore, but he's got a secretary, long-standing secretary at his law firm that confessed to having a intimate relationship with him early on in her working there. She was under oath and everything, but we don't really know the full extent to that, how long it actually went on, even though she gave her testimony. But we really don't know. She did testify to having some intimate times with the deceased. So I say that to say, he's not completely innocent. There was even some other testimony about him actually talking to somebody about someone that they knew, kind of wanting to get together, like kind of like a "can you set me up" type thing. And then at some point in the setup, the lady asked, "Hey, isn't he married?" And once she found out he was married, then she was like, "Oh no, he's married." So he's not innocent. He's the victim, and he's not here anymore, but he's not innocent. So yeah, I'm saying all that to say, wow, she's crying, she's pleading for her life here. She knows that if she's sent to prison, she probably won't make it out alive. And he looks like he wants to cry. He's not crying because he's got his brother behind him and everything over there on the side of him. And I don't think he's gonna, his brother's being accused. I don't think he wants his brother to know that he feels for his mother right now, but I'm sure he does. How could you not? How could you not? Even if she did it, how could you not feel for your mother that's, made sure that you got to this point? She's made sure you stayed alive, your sisters, your brother, everybody's intact. She's helping you. They were all receiving a lot of help from their father. I don't think anybody has been as successful in their lives and what they do for a living and stuff like that. I don't think any of them have been as successful as the father. And the father is still doing so much to help out and take care of, and all that sort of stuff. And I don't see where she ever got in the way of the dad helping any of them. I don't know. How could you not feel for her?
I'm begging you, not for me, but for Gary and my children and my grandchildren.
All right. Ms. Frankish, you want to respond to anything?
Very briefly, Judge. When the attorneys had the opportunity to give jurors, Your Honor was, I believe, present for that. For Scott's sake, they ruled him out in the very beginning of deliberations.
All right. I'm gonna obviously stop sharing that because that video ended. They didn't give us the test. They didn't give us the sentencing. So I'm gonna skip over here and go to the sentence. For those of you who don't know how badly this ended. Where is it? I have to read it on another page so I can see it. Okay, so here's Melody. So this says the wife of a prominent Georgia attorney has been convicted of the unaliving of her husband and burning of his body. On Thursday, December 5th, Georgia Superior Court Judge David L. Cannon Jr. sentenced Farris, 64, to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. So she would in effect be 94 years old when she has the possibility of parole, but I don't think that's true. Okay, yeah, here it goes. For, yes, the unaliving of her husband, Gary Farris, at Atlanta area attorney, AAAA, in 2018. WSB TV, Fox 5, and 11 Alive reported. She also received 5 years for concealing her husband's unaliving by trying to burn the remains, and 5 years for making a false statement to police, with both sentences to run concurrently per Fox 5. During the sentencing, Farris reaffirmed an accusation she made at trial that her son, Scott Farris, was the one who actually unalived his father, and called for the judge to act as the 13th juror and throw out her conviction. And obviously, he did not do that. Okay, so that's how this ended for Melody. And yeah, it was not pretty. Okay, now gonna go over to one more video, and I'm gonna do my best not to have any commentary, just so that we can get through this very quickly, and you can hear what this expert has to say. So this is a body language breakdown. Again, Court TV, provided by Court TV. And let's go ahead and listen to what the body language expert had to say about her after, reviewing the video as well. Well, oh, sorry. Here we go. Okay, let's share. Let's see what the body language expert had to say. Make sure it's coming in hot.
Time for tipping the scales. The Ferris wheel, the family drama came to a head in the sentencing in the burn pile murder trial when convicted killer Melody Farris blamed her son, Scott.
Not only did I not do this, I know who did. I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband, the father of Chris, Emily, and Amanda.
Scott was in the gallery, shaking his head back and forth while Mom read her statement to not only the judge, but the world. The judge sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole. She's expected to serve 30 years minimum. She's not going to outlive that. She's already 60, I believe, 3. We're asking, do you believe Melody Farris? Did she tip the scales in her favor with this elaborate sentencing diatribe? She went on and was very detailed in some of the things that she believes points to Scott's guilt, her son. Let's talk about it with criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Joe Tamburino and body language expert and senior instructor at the Body Language Institute, Rodney Smith. Rodney, we're waiting to talk to you. I know what I think. I think she was telling the truth. After a while, you're listening to her, it's like, oh, this is coming from somewhere down deep, and or she's absolutely off her rocker. What did you see when evaluating? Let's start with Melody on during the sentencing hearing. Oh, Rodney, you got me?
Oh, yes. Oh. Sorry, I had a little bit of a delay. Sorry.
No problem.
So, obviously, whenever she starts off with her statement, she says that she wrote this. And based off the fact that she makes that statement, indicating that she actually wrote the statement, the information that she put in there, she truly believes. A lot of the times when we look at from baseline to change, we see differences and changes in her tonality, her voice inflections. She's making direct positive accusations. She's making direct eye contact with her son, Scott. She's making eye contact with the judge. She comes across as very credible and believable in the information that she's presenting. And I think at this point, she's actually, for everyone else that has been listening, to include the judge, I would say she did a really good job of creating a level of reasonable doubt.
Joe, we watched this trial and it was no slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people thought she would be found not guilty before the jury came back with their guilty verdict. What did you think of Melody at the sentencing, and how does it affect her case one way or another, or at all?
Well, it's too late, and it doesn't affect her case. I agree with Rodney. She came across pretty well during all of this, but she should have testified. I think we talked about this before when we were watching the trial. She had an opportunity to testify. She could have gotten on that stand and even went into greater detail than she did at the time of the sentencing. So it's too late. It's not going to affect her case at all, and she should have testified.
Well, she did say, Joe, I wanted to testify. My attorneys advised me not to. Is that going to be part of an appeal here, ineffective assistance, or no? Because the judge colloquied her.
Well, ineffective assistance is very difficult to win on in an appeal. It just is. Because when you get down to these calls as to whether or not, say, an attorney would call a witness, whether the defendant should testify, whether this witness should be cross-examined. These are basically calls that an attorney makes, in conjunction with talking to their client during a trial. And almost always, those types of calls will not be considered ineffective assistance if they wind up being the wrong call. So I doubt, she might raise this on appeal, but I highly doubt she's going to prevail on it. The bottom line is that when you have information like this, you are the defendant and you talk to the attorneys. Of course, you give them, what your opinions are, and they're going to give you advice. But with powerful statements like this, she should have just testified. And I'm surprised her attorney said not.
Yeah. Rodney, let's listen to more of Melody. I want to see what you see.
I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th in your truck. You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire. You told me it was okay. I asked you a few weeks later why you were at that burn pile in your truck. And you told me that your dad had told you to clean up the extra wood that was by the barn.
Rodney?
Yeah, so once again, in this area here, which we refer to as the brow area, we see signs of grief. We see those inner eyebrows going in with an upward pull. And while she already has a downward produced area of her mouth here, we see that in conjunction. And we know from the universal micro expressions as well as macro expressions, those are areas of reliability when it comes to producing sadness. So she comes across as credible because she has that movement, which is a very difficult movement to make on command. If you were to try that yourself, to contract those muscles to be able to have that inward and upward pull in conjunction and in tandem with the frown more so than a pout, it comes across as very credible. She's very well composed in that chair. She's not doing a lot of unnecessary movement. She's actually seeming very relaxed, and she feels, and she's presenting herself in a manner that I know what I'm talking about. She believes what she's saying.
What about Scott? We've got can we play the sound real fast and then a quick assessment with yes or no if we believe him? No.
Did you murder your father?
I absolutely did not murder my father. Without a doubt, I loved him.
Did you have anything to do to help your mother dispose of and burn your father?
Absolutely not.
Tell me, not me.
No.
Rodney, do you buy him?
Well, without having a great amount of information, I do believe that he loved him. I do believe that he had some form of a grief muscle in showing. He did give a qualifier at the beginning. Instead of just saying no, he came out with an absolutely not. And a lot of times, not saying that is indicative of lying, but he is actually trying to produce information that says, I unequivocally did not have any place in my father's murder.
Fascinating stuff, Rodney Smith. Thank you for your insight. Joe's going to stick around. At this point, Melody Farris is off to the state penitentiary. Scott is free. Did the jury get it right?
So that's all I have for today. What do you think? I've talked a lot about what I think. I'd like to know, what in the world do you think about this situation? Not that it makes a whole lot of difference, because like the gentleman said there at the end, this case has already been tried. She's already been convicted. She's headed to prison. She has an opportunity on appeal, however many years that's going to take. But she does still have an opportunity to appeal this conviction. So I'd like to know down in the comments, what do you think? All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.